because a lot of the time, Noise with Ivan can turn into a big promotion session, and I don't necessarily want it to be an advertisement or anything like that, but I wouldn't be listening, and I always look at rate your music and four-star ratings or most of what I give, well, that's because I like the music that I listen to. I usually select things that I think I'm going to like. I'm not so far in to listening to music that, or listening to everything that I can, that I'm running into a whole lot of stuff. But it's getting closer to that, um, I've gotten to the point where I can certainly find some things that I don't like as much. And as complex as I get musically, as far as I take it, of course, when I was a teenager, I just played guitar, and then I started doing mixing, and then I went to production school or took classes. Now I'm involved in a label, and it's all this noise walls, and whether you think it to be more complex or fancier to listen to noise walls than regular music, I mean, I think it is. It definitely takes, whether it itself is simple, it takes abstract thinking and deeper looking to be interested in tone and timbre, as opposed to actual music notes. It's almost more complex than something like playing guitar. Listening to noise is more complex than something like playing guitar. As a noise artist and a noise listener, I think listening to noise is more complex than listening to traditional forms of music. Yet, making traditional forms of music is more complex than making noise. Making noise is not a complex or difficult thing whatsoever. I'm not someone who thinks that. I know that there are a lot of people that do it a lot better than me that blow my mind. Okay, just like guitar players and composers. I have been working on my listening, of course, and I got into Death Noir, which is becoming one of my favorite noise projects. I already went over a couple of Death Noir releases, that being Anne Crawford, um, and I highly praised it. I don't know how highly I praise it because, like I said, I don't always hit the record button and am in a good mood, but it was, I'm adding that word glassy into a lot of my notes. Textures are really, really valuable, and I'm kind of in a phase where I really like that, and that's because of Death Noir. If you don't know Death Noir is the way I would look at it, very basically, before I looked into it. Death Noir is a series of noise walls that has famous or not famous actresses. Some of these are kind of deep cuts, like some of them are from international foreign films. It reminds me of the actress series from Cuba to Asparagus. That he has a lot of great. Those are pretty good. They tend to be on cassette. There's the most notorious in my mind anyway is Molly Ringwald, and I never memorized that actress's name or watched Breakfast Club. But when that when Molly Ringwald came out, or when I listened to it anyway, I had to memorize it because I was referencing the Noise album, the Noise Wall, the Molly Ringwald Noise Wall all the time. So now I know that actress, and there were other actresses, many actresses, maybe Denise Richards, I don't know, from the Cuba to Asparagus series of actresses, and I just call it the actress series. Death Noir is the exact same thing, except older, possibly more obscure actresses, whom I don't know. You know what I mean? I've dabbled in film, watched a couple movies, and I'm starting to really like movies. I think film is a lot more captivating because you have literature, photography, music, you have all those things combined in one thing. So it's a very influential, and I think film is something that everybody has some interest in, or can potentially have some interest in. And I have for a long time been, I'm not really into movies. I don't have taste in movies. The stuff that I liked was what I grew up with. Surf's Up, Sky High, Wedding Crashers, stuff like that. But you know what? Hannah Haruna is another really great example of the kind of actress themed noise walls. when you have a kind of simple art form, and like I said, noise is kind of a simple art form. So when you have that, the themes really become a big part. I don't know. The themes become more simple. So it has to be something you're into. If you're into sci-fi, you're going to, like, we can think about Dungeon Synth. If you're into sci-fi and fantasy, then those kinds of themes are going to pop up. If you're really interested in, if you like reading manga, you're going to have all manga. Oh, I can't remember the, remind me in the comments who the guy with the manga covers is. I remember they were overpriced, so I didn't buy them, but I liked them. There's an episode of this where I complained about the Rate Your Music censorship, and it was things that did not need to be censored. I'm at a point now where I've completely taken the censorship off, which I don't really like that either, but everything just pops up. I don't, it's a very complicated to fix, a complicated thing to fix. But Death Noir had a split with Hannah Haruna. And Hannah Haruna, I noticed when I did my split with him, named his tracks after gravure, the Japanese swimsuit models, J-pop stars, so something like that. Now, being interested in being a big fan of Hannah Haruna and Death Noir alike and Kubatu Asparagus, I'm not really going to extend my knowledge of actresses and things like that. It's not a big enough deal for me to go that far, but just to have something, a noise wall based on a actress or a project based or a series based on something silly like that is very interesting to me. The deep emotional underscore that causes an art project is not always there, and that's modern music as well. They're influenced by small things. Sudden Moment was the Mark Maloshi's record label, and Mark Maloshi is responsible for Death Noir. He was also married to Medea. He also founded a record label called Titus Records. Those two had a collaborative project called Dead Meat Omen. And Medea had this is probably one of the more notorious releases in this circle, a split with the Rita, which was called Fra Diavolo. Their collaboration, Dead Meat Omen, there was a release called Egyptian Ghost. And I did go ahead and listen to those, as well as the Hannah Haruna split that Mark Maloshi did under Death Noir. Death Noir and Hannah Haruna go together like a horse and carriage. Those two are just meant to be together. Get Kubatu Asparagus in here to a three-way split. I'm going to start off with Ann Sheridan. This was from 2017. I don't know that he's doing anything recent. The one interesting thing is all these actress releases are on different labels. But I tried to phase these correctly, tried to add some other things in there, and that's probably why I went to the Dead Meat Omen as opposed to just sticking with Death Noir, because that's a lot of noise walls with the exact same theme to listen to. How am I going to vary that? But I did like them all, and if you're a noise wall fan, I mentioned that I would be doing this episode to Silver Dove, and he said he's also a fan. When there's spoken word, the Ann Sheridan one does have spoken word. A lot of the time they start with a clip or a scene from a film, and then they go on to the second track being a noise wall. The film clips tend to be actually kind of long, like a minute or 2 minutes of spoken word that's pretty intense. Which reminds me of the psychoactive warfare. What I'm going to do is pressure Tremo to allow me to reissue Psychoactive Warfare by Betty Coster that was under Phantasm Nocturnes as opposed to May Cause Death, which is a really cool project, and we really enjoyed doing Unidentified and another Phantasm Nocturnes release. And I think that the listeners especially really enjoyed Phantasm Nocturne, so I'm looking forward to putting that out. And that was really great. But it was kind of incredible how long the audio clips lasted going along with the noise, and it was pretty enlightening. Very complex and easily done. Nothing too chaotic, but it was harsh and it was complex. But Ginger Rogers, he didn't even have a noise clip. I don't think. He just had the one noise wall, which was sad, but I mean, really, that's all I'm looking for, I suppose. This was on Nailed Nazarene Industries, which I don't know how I'm going to feel about the name, but they do not allow you to buy the digital album. It's $999, and the weird thing about it is that you don't. Oh, it has a link to his Bandcamp. Okay, it has a link to the Death Noir Bandcamp page. on Nailed Nazarene, but it also has a link to their Kunaki site, which, you can feel whatever way about Kunaki you like, but that just means that they have their albums set up on Kunagi so that you can order them on CD. I'm not finding anything when I go to the link though, so you may very well not be able to do that at all. But Egyptian Ghost was, I mean, there wasn't much from Dead Meat Omen or from Medea as I could find at all. And I was a little more excited about Hannah Haruna, but this was really interesting because it feels old. It feels like something you had to dig up, And I did have to dig this up. There was a really fun word for it, horror synth, and it has those Egyptian themes. You remember me mentioning it's such a simple process that you need some type of device that will create noise, or some type of function. Whether that's field recordings, I love making noise with field recordings, or synthesizers, guitar pedals, something like that. All you need is that and something you're into. So, books, really great if you can get public domain. Okay, for me, for Contrite Heart, Gustave Doré artwork, right? Uh, Rembrandt paintings. You know what I mean? If you have the religious theme, then you've got your theme set up, something to kind of make the noise to highlight. Very cool. But yeah, horror synth and noise. It was a good combination of those two things. Back from 2007. So it kind of blows my mind. It seems like there wasn't much noise going on back then, but I'm sure there was just as much going on now, but it's so hard to document it because all that stuff went away and you have to wonder are people going to be on Rate Your Music seeing all this stuff that we documented on here 20 years from now? I don't know. I'm 20 years old as it is, at least. Diavolo was, as opposed to, Death Noir and Hannah Haruna, straight up noise walls, two guys geeking out, doing what they love. I absolutely loved the release. It worked. Also, it worked as a volley. It was Death Noir, Hannah Haruna, Death Noir, Hannah Haruna, as opposed to two of them and then two of them, which is how I did the split with Roman Shower, and almost how I did it with Angel of the Enemy. But I was never. I was always. That's the way I always thought. It's like we don't have to use a record. Um, we can change it up where it's one side. It's not literally a split. We don't have to set it up like that. Um, but yeah, Fra Diavolo was not, from what I could tell, not harsh noise wall, but it was very compressed in that harsh noise wall kind of way. It stayed in the same. So while there was a lot of variation in tone, it's something that you could listen to critically or passively. So that's a really positive trait, actually, about Fra Diavolo. It's very old school to have something like that you can potentially listen. And maybe that's the value of some of the more old school noise. You can listen to it passively or you can listen to it critically. You can go either direction with that. So that's kind of a high recommendation from me with Fra Diavolo. I would love to say that I like Death Noir and Hannah Haruna better. And it's more to my taste, but honestly the Rita split was very, very interesting. Like if you have thousands of dead gods, I think we've emulated thousands of dead gods enough to where it's not quite necessary anymore. And for Egyptian Ghost, if I'm to say, is that a good record or not? I think it's interesting and fun, death industrial and dark ambient, as opposed to straight harsh noise. You're going to be interested in that. It's a combination of synth and music, which I think a lot of people like. We tend to put stuff out that is very, very popular that has those aspects to it. But this feels a lot older. It feels old school. Whether you're looking at I don't know, sort of official cover or whatever you get on Bandcamp, that just feels like a different era. You don't get stuff like that anymore, and you don't get sounds like this anymore. Everything's a little bit more computery, polished. I'll work with synthesizers sometimes in my DAW with native instruments, and it's already got so much tone in there that there's not really anything. 2007 synth is so much different from 2026 synth. This is a 20-year-old release. That's crazy. Yeah, it sounds old school. Everything is so, as far as dark ambient, it's so complex and so easy to press a note and have a lot of tone come from that to where it's very interesting. But there's so much of it now that it's kind of lost its value. You know what I mean? It's very, very easy to make a complex, really interesting ambient release because we have plugins that make that stuff so easy to do. Oh, Rapport. This was on Mark Maloshi's label, Sudden Moment. This was another one that I listened to 2017, so pretty new considering what we were just looking at. And it looks like I thought it was interesting. Experimental electronic music as opposed to harsh noise. Super cool. I also got a recommendation from, I think this was from Tristan. Uh, it's gonna be sad if I start mixing up who sent me which release. Ascent of Garmombrosia by Philip Petit and Friends. Uh, or maybe it's Petit. I don't know. You remember when he said a petite and he said a petit when Norman Macdonald was playing Turk Ferguson or Burt Reynolds on SNL. Funny stuff. Duos for Doris, Keith Rao and John Tilbury. I'm not gonna put that on my or on your queue, but I'm gonna put it on my queue. I haven't listened to it yet. You can if you want, but there's probably a lot of cool things. And the reason I'm bringing that album up is because it's the number one EAI album, Electroacoustic Improvisation. It's EAI. It's a new sort of subgenre that I've found, and there's 3,000 releases, which I think is a reasonable amount to listen to, just exploring uh, EAI music, and pretty cool. You know, electroacoustic is a very, very exciting thing, and I never rated this. I'm going to give it 4 stars. I liked that very much, and I can highly recommend that. Speaking of electronic experimental music, I mentioned that. Check out the BCE Basement Core Emissions compilation, BCE 1000. Okay, that's a good release. Give that a rating because I mean that could be really very beneficial for a lot of artists because it's highly rated but not rated much. So I mean, if people keep up with that, beneficial because there's a lot of people on there that a lot of people don't know about that are really good. I also listen to the Weapons Against, oh goodness, the Black Iron Prison. I've been trying to listen to all the Angel of the Enemy stuff. It's the Angel of the Enemy. He's always really good. Very power electronics, very black and noise. This is you can tell this is an old release because his font is just a little bit lighter in the touch than the newer font, but all his album art is exactly. It's kind of the opposite of my Contrite Heart releases, which is funny. Like black borders on the top and bottom, as opposed to my white borders on the top and bottom. I have really big margins though, as opposed to him. I try to keep it thin. I don't know why. I mentioned doing heavy modulation. Someone had noted in one of their releases, and I'm kind of ashamed because I forgot to mention that, I think, but all K2, I think it was, all modulation doing that. Flangers, chorus, stuff like that. No distortion whatsoever. That's impressive for a harsh noise project. Kind of blows my mind. The Angel of the Enemy, not so much, but a lot of that, but also a lot of reverb and distortion. That's the way he uses it. Angel of the Enemies is one of the greatest noise artists. I could recommend anything and everything that he's released. This is not probably top 10 for his releases. He has a lot of great stuff. Tristidia is one of my favorite noise albums ever. I would start with that if you're listening to Angel of the Enemy, but listen to all his stuff. It's all great. You know what I mean? Switch that out with these Death Noir releases if you need something a little more chaotic while you're listening to all these harsh noise walls. Speaking of which, Julie Adams in the house, Creature from the Black Lagoon. That's fun, right? Because we have I think the audio reference on the first track of the Julie Adams release is from Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is also the Rita's big reference, which is pretty cool. This is loose. It's not. It's almost not harsh noise wall. It's kind of It's kind of on the fence whether it's gonna be harsh noise wall or harsh noise, but just loose, I would say. I think that the consistency is there, but it's almost like there. It's a looped. It's looped harsh noise, like 1 second of looped harsh noise, kind of. I don't know. You have to listen to it for yourself, but almost not harsh noise wall. Kind of a lot going on. I would still consider it to be harsh noise wall, I believe. And Margaret, it uses less low frequencies, not very consistent anyway, but it's a lot more noticeable than in the other ones. Then this is kind of common, a lot of emphasis on high mid, but it's very harsh and broad, even though it's more mainstream than most of them are. A lot of I know again these are alternative harsh noise wall. Mary Astor That's a forehead. Oh my gosh. Low, very coarse grained. It sounds like it sounds good. Maltese Falcon is a movie that I am familiar with. So I was happy to see a movie that I had seen. Um, Barbara Steele, I mean, Mary Astor has a big forehead. Barbara Steele, I'm like Donald Trump doing women ratings instead of actually doing noise ratings. Definitely creepy. I think that this was from, it seems like it was from something different than like classic Hollywood cinema. But again, I don't really care about the actresses. Again, it makes me feel bad that I don't get the references. I don't have time for that. I have a lot of noise to listen to. But I listed that this one was very unique and specific to Death Noir's sound. Maybe that's because it was followed by Mary Astor, which was a little bit more of a classic harsh noise wall release. This kind of had some synth feel. Have you ever heard the Sado Rituals walls that feel like they also have synth, a noise wall in tandem with synth? I feel like I may have criticized that and he stopped doing it. I think I specifically asked him to not do it and then do it for the Hailing Her Heaven's Contrite Heart split, the first one that we did, Holy Violence. But also remember mixing, and I've mentioned this far too many times, with the Burial Garden split. Shouts out Burial Garden. Burial Garden is something that is, same thing as the Angel of the Enemy. It's just something that comes. Oh, Burial Garden. I'll listen to that. While I'm doing dishes or something. I don't know how to feel about the synth in tandem. This was different though. I will say that it puts a ton of pressure on it. It makes it feel encapsulating, and you might not realize that that's just a droning synth note going for the same extent that the noise wall goes for hertz. I loved the Janice Starlin one. It's very good and reverberated. I was writing in all caps, but it's very hazy and reverberated. The place for my favorite. I'm trying to emphasize this the way I emphasized it when I wrote this. It's my favorite Death Noir, but not at all harsh noise wall. And there's a few more things that I listen to from the bottom of the barrel, but unfortunately, I'm still not done with my bottom of the barrel series because I'm at 40 minutes of the original recording. I just did too much talking. I'm sorry I was a blabbermouth today. I'll talk to you about the rest of the bottom of the barrel stuff on a later date. I've recorded these bottom of the barrel episodes in a very short amount of time, and it has been a pleasure to do so. Thank you for joining me on Noise with Ivan. If you want to support the channel, buy CDs at anotherflesh.bandcamp.com. We have the May batch coming out. I am still in real time as I'm recording this. I'm still working out what releases are going to be on there. I would like Future Battery and Phantasm Nocturnes to make a batch exclusive appearance because I didn't end up having enough things to fill it with. Quiet Elsewhere, Helios 9 was added to it, which was kind of give or take. And I need more stuff. And Liberty of Madness didn't end up making the cut. I wasn't able to get it done soon enough, basically. I have the CDs made, but I'm not going to release them with the batch. So I'm not sure. I'm thinking about, but yeah, I'm looking for those things. So it should be available at this point. If it's not sold out, I know the last batch we released got sold out the day that we released it. So thank you for everything, by the way, guys. I could shout out a lot of people. I try not to shout out the people in the videos because sometimes I shout out artists in the videos for sure, but I don't tend to shout out the viewers. But you know who you are. I talk to you a lot, so thank you so much. Be sure to stream Slavery, Man Hates God, stuff like that, which is also a huge support and help. And listen to these artists, rate music on Rate Your Music. Um, just have fun listening. Godspeed.